Hello my friends. In this video we're going to be making an ulu and a cutting board for it. And I'll be explaining a few of the steps in the process that aren't totally self-explanatory by the video. Right now, cleaning steel, getting it prepped to get forge welded together. So all these little pieces that you see right here are going to become one chunk of steel. There are two different kinds of steel. One's 15N20, one is 1084. And we're going to forge weld these together to make our base random pattern. And I'm going to be trying something new today called plug welding. It's going to have a base pattern of random, and then these chunks of steel are a pattern I made a while ago. And we're going to forge these together and make them into a round, forge weld these together and make them into a round bar. And you'll see what that looks like. But right now I'm just welding these up, and then we're going to go into the forge. So I've got the forge preheated. Now I'm shutting the air off. Well, not off, but turning it down and turning the gas way up so it becomes a very fuel-rich flame to the point where there should be little to no oxygen in the forge. And the first billet we're doing is the pattern I made a couple months back. That's going to become the plug pattern. Try and ignore my beautiful singing here, but anyway, as you can see, I've got a round section forged onto the billet, and I'm putting a twist in it with the hopes that it'll put a little bit more distortion and spiralness into the plugs when we get those put in. Anyway, I only forged out half the billet into a round bar so that I could use the rest of the billet for a future project down the road. And here is the final dimensions of our plug bar. Now we got the forge all fuel rich again, and we're going in with the second billet. So off camera, I drew this billet out into about twice the length and probably a third or a quarter of the thickness. While that was cooling down, I attempted to turn the plug bar, and you can see how well that went. Anyway, now we're cutting up the random pattern into a bunch of small chunks to get restacked and forge welded again. And that basically, if you picture it just being a bunch of sheets of paper, we're basically just splitting them in half, or in this case into I think 4 or 5 pieces, and then stacking them up. So it effectively makes the layer count 5 times more, or however many pieces there are. And yeah, there you can see there's 5 pieces, and we'll get those forge welded back together and pancaked out, and then put these plugs in. So here I've got the drawing dies on, and these basically make it so you can control which direction the metal spreads in. I had plenty of length on this billet. I just need to make it a lot wider because these Ulus have a pretty unique shaped blade. Anyway, so here I'm just spreading it out and basically making it into a big pancake. After a few more heats of spreading, this is what it looks like. Here I'm just cleaning all the rough scale off. As you can see, I turned that round bar into a much cleaner and more round bar, I don't know. And then I cut it up into a bunch of small chunks, and those are what's gonna fill these holes. So we're basically gonna make this random pattern pancake into a piece of Swiss cheese, and then we're gonna plug it up with these little chunks of steel. I did not film the forge welding or the welding of this process, so sorry, I was on a big time crunch. Anyway, after we get these holes drilled and the chunks put in, this is kind of what it looks like. I also spent probably like 30 minutes surface grinding it, so it's about half the thickness, and that was just to get rid of all of the imperfections in the weld. The round bar was not perfectly round, so there was some gappage there. So I was a little worried that I wasn't going to get these welds fully cleaned up. The plug welding process is pretty difficult. Anyway, it ended up working out really well, but this thing is about half the thickness now. And there you can see it's rough cut out, cleaning up some of the profile here with both the flat platen and horizontal grinder and a little contact wheel. And now we're moving on to getting some hole drills to attach the handle to this thing. Now that we've got the holes drilled in the soft steel, it's time to make this thing hard and a serviceable knife. So we're going into the heat treating oven, and we'll get this thing quenched and hardened. Now we're moving on to what I like to call the handle posts. I don't know what else to call them. This is just a chunk of bronze, and here I'm just making these things nice and perfectly square. Now we're back onto the blade for a second. I gotta make this thing about the final thickness that it's gonna be. That way I can mill the slot in the posts to the perfect size. So here I'm cleaning up the surface finish on the disc sander with a leather back. That just does most of the work for me, and then we'll move on to hand sanding. Alright, we're back onto the posts. This is the first cut of many to mill in the slots for this blade. So this is a pretty nifty tool that I made. It's called a handle broach, and we need to make these round holes into squares because I love the way that the square top of the posts look, and I think a square hole in antler is also just such a cool look. So you can see that's what it looks like, all rough fit up, and we're starting to get a general idea of how this thing is going to look when it's done. Here we're drilling the pins to connect the posts to the antler mechanically. Next, I forgot to film a lot of the process. Didn't forget, it was actually just really late and I was really tired and didn't film it. But anyway, we get this thing etched. The two different steels come out when we put it in the ferric chloride. They etch at different rates. That's what brings out the pattern. You can see the nice little plugs here in just a second. I didn't end up filming a lot of the final steps in the process. I peened over the pins, polished the antler, made a cutting board for it. It was about midnight by the time I left the shop. I sandblasted the posts and gun blued them so they look black, or this like cool brown almost. Anyway, I hope you like how it turned out and enjoy this song that my two friends Addie and Matilda made.
Drive up to the mountains with a trunk full